Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, we're doing this lovely natural makeup look on my beautiful model, Cece. So the first thing I do is I always check my client's skin texture. So if it's dry, I just add a little bit of oil. I use this dry oil. It's 100% squalene solution from the Abnormal Beauty Company. I use it myself. I use it under the foundation and I massage it into the skin. It's super relaxing. I started on Cece's eyes with concealer from MAC Cosmetics. It's just a liquid concealer that I like to use as primer for the eyes. I'm just so used to starting with the eyes. It's just a habit. And I decided to use the concealer to clean up the brows and just really clean up her line. She really didn't need anything. Her brows are just gorgeous. I'm using this lovely liquid shimmer from Sephora, and I always use this on my clients religiously now, and I buff it into the skin because it creates this beautiful glow from within. We also call it underpainting, so you can use many different layers of gold or different textures of gold, different shades of gold to create that extra glow in the skin. Don't be afraid to use your fingers. It's really, the warmth from your fingers helps the product really blend into the skin. So this brush that I'm using is a foundation brush. It's very dense. There's a lot of bristles on it, but it's also fluffy. So I actually like to use it for different things. I use it for foundation, but I also like to use it for shimmer. This is NARS, I think it's the Orgasm color, and it's also a shimmer. I use this on myself when I have a tan under my foundation to give that glow, and it just looks amazing. So as you can see, I am layering it and I'm using my fingers. I'm using Face Atelier foundation. It's a Canadian brand. I'm using 2 shades. This is my favorite foundation. It's liquid, but it looks like it just photoshops the face. It's incredible. I'm using the lighter color, which I believe was a 7 or an 8, just in the center parts of her face, because it really blended really well. And then I have a darker shade that I'm going to be using on the outline of her face as a contour. I'm using the same brush I used for the shimmer because it's all going to blend together. I like the way that all of these materials that we're using, kind of like an artist painting, you're creating layers upon layers so that it sinks into the skin and it all looks really smooth and well blended. So I tap around the mouth because she did have a little bit of discoloration. I have discoloration around the mouth. Whenever you have discoloration, make sure you tap rather than buff or blend, because it won't really work if you do that. You have to tap it in. I'm now using the darker shade around the hairline, and as you can see, I'm using super feather light motions to blend it down into the curve. So where the face curves is where I blend it, if that makes sense. I'm taking it down the jawline, and I'm not really doing a strong contour. Like, this isn't a very strong contoured look. This is super natural. I want to blend this color into her neckline so that it looks natural. I'm taking it from the cheekbone all the way down, and I just like the way it's blending like this. I wanted to keep the highlight in the middle parts of her face and then the darker parts around her face, so that sculpts her face. Not that she really needs it. I really don't believe that a lot of people need contour. I know this is very a non-popular idea, but as an artist myself, I have to look at a face and make sure that everything is well blended and well lit from all directions. Everything has to blend, everything has to look beautiful and seamless, as if she just woke up like this. And look at how beautiful that looks right now. This is my favorite foundation, and you don't need a whole lot, so just a couple drops. Now I'm going in with concealer. I'm realizing that I do need a little bit of color correction, and a lot of us do need this. So I'm using Visart, and it's a peach color corrector. I'm using 2. And I'm gonna go with the darker one. I don't wanna go with the lighter one, the lighter peach, because that could give me raccoon eyes and it could give me like really too much brightness. I don't want that. I want to just color correct. I'm going around the mouth. Like I said, she did have a little bit of discoloration around the mouth. And I'm using this beautiful brush from Makeup Forever. It's really tapered, it's really pointed, so I can get into all of the corners. I like using it around the mouth. It's very, it gives me a very straight edge. And here I'm gonna tap the brush a little bit just so that the product goes right into the skin. Even Cece was commenting that it feels really weird, but it's actually a really great way of blending the color into the skin. I'm taking the concealer on the top part of the lip too, because this creates a barrier for the lipstick for later. She has great lips, so I'm just going around the discolored areas, a little bit around the nose. We all have a little darkness around the nose. I use my finger to tap to warm up the product so that it sinks into the skin. I'm taking the concealer under the eyes, concealer slash corrector. She has great skin, so it was a little bit on the drier side just because it's winter. Everybody has dry skin right now. So I wanted to keep her skin just super glowy. The way I do concealer is very, very light. I'm not packing it on. Now, if I was going for a more dramatic look, I would definitely pack it on. But for this look, we're going super natural. Always use feather strokes. Always hold the brush super, super light in your hand, lightly in your hand. These concealers are a little bit on the drier side, I found. So you have to be really careful with blending. Make sure you blend. I didn't use a beauty blender. I didn't feel the need to use a beauty blender. So just a little bit using the brush and using my fingers to tap the product into the skin, I felt was more than enough. I'm loving the way her skin is looking on camera. I took a little bit more of the darker foundation and tapped on a little bit more just on the parts that are on the lower parts of the face, because I felt like it just needed a little bit more coverage. I'm spreading the concealer on the eyes before I set it with powder. This is the Laura Mercier translucent powder, so it has no color. I find with darker skin tones, I'm not a huge fan of the translucent powder. I usually use something that's got a little bit more yellow. On the eyes, I decided to use this nice like transition color. I felt like it's a little bit too warm for my taste, but it actually worked really nicely because I wanted to warm up her skin. So I used this orange color from this Smarty Pants palette from MAC. And as you can see, it's just a wash of color. Like I'm just going back and forth super lightly. I'm not really going crazy with packing on the colors. It's just a transition color. I went in with the brown color, so this is the darker brown, using a very, very small brush, and I'm pulling the color upwards. And what that does is I just wanted to give her a shadow. I think the tendency is to go super dark with a lot of models. Whenever we're working on models, we want to do smoky eyes, and I totally did see smoky eyes on her at first, but I wanted to keep it safe, and I wanted to layer the product bit by bit. So I'm taking out a little bit more. This brush is really great. I don't know what this brush is. I've had it for so many years. I'm starting at the lash line and I'm pulling it up. So I did apply some of the shadow underneath her eyes, and I applied a little bit of powder under her eyes, but it was a yellow powder. It's called Soft Yellow from MAC. Now I'm going in with a color from Urban Decay. It's like a terracotta orange color that's really nice for a transition. It looks a little bit, it's like a bronzer almost. Here I'm using our CMA Cheek Color Palette, and I chose the color that's a little bit darker and warmer. And I'm using my fingertips to tap it into the skin and warm it up into the skin. Now I'm taking the same foundation brush that I used before, and I'm blending out on all the lines. You can use any brush for this. You can absolutely use a beauty blender. You can use a buffing brush, a kabuki brush. I just really like this foundation brush. And then I go over it with my fingers again. I find the best blending tools are your fingers. This is more highlight. This is from the Makeup Forever Artist Pro Artist palette, and it's a cream highlighter. So you remember we did already so many layers of highlighter. The more you layer and the softer you layer, the more your skin is going to glow. So she's loving it. I'm loving the way this is looking on camera. It's so subtle. I'm really all about subtlety and about layering. Always keep in mind that layering is better than just packing on one massive layer of product. This color is really nice. It's like a champagne-y, kind of a golden color, and it looks like she doesn't even need blush at this point. I mean, I already did use blush, but I'm not gonna use a powder blush. This is all we really need. I touched a little bit of it on the brow bone, and just to give her just that extra highlight, that nice glow, and I'm loving it. I just keep adding more and more. So we did a little bit of mascara here. I found that it didn't really give me the lift that I was looking for. So we're skipping over to lipstick, and then we'll go back to eyelashes in a second. I went with a really nice warm color. This is Taupe from MAC. It just worked for her skin. I was actually gonna go with like a fuchsia pink, like a really, really bright pink. I thought that would look really nice on her. But once I tried this color, I really loved it. So I wanted to stay within that warm palette. A lot of times when I'm doing makeup, I will just try things and see what works and then just go with it, because it's my first time doing Cece's makeup. And I'm sure that the more I do her makeup, the more I'll get used to it and the more we'll experiment with color. But I really enjoyed this color on her, and she loved it herself. It just looks so natural, and it just looks like it's just meant for her. So we're just adjusting the camera here. As you can see, it's really starting to come together. I started putting on some individual lashes, and these are Ardell's. I love these lashes. These are the doubles, I think. So they're actually quite thick. They're not the super thin individual ones. And I put about 4 or 5 on each side. I just found that they really brightened up her face and they lifted her eyes. So a lot of times if you find that if you're wearing makeup and it's just your eyes are just not popping enough, go ahead and use individual lashes. They will really change up your look. I wanted to add a little bit more dimension under her eyes because I felt like her eyes were still looking a little bit small. And if you have more smaller hooded eyes, this is a really nice thing to do, is to just add more smokiness on the bottom part of your eyes. I think the tendency is to add smokiness on the top part, but don't forget you can create balance by creating shadow from underneath the eye. And I go super softly, and remember, no two eyes are the same, so I have to keep checking if the eyes look similar. I found that this eye on my left was not as blended, so I had to go back in and clean it up with a Q-tip. I'm adding a little bit of sparkle just in the inner corners, just because why not? So I think it's fun. I think it brightens up her face. I'm brushing out her brows here. She's got great brows, so I really didn't feel the need to fill them in. I just filled in the tails using my L'Oreal eyebrow pencil. And I could have gone in and like really worked on her brows and added a ton of color, but you know what? She didn't need it. I wanted the emphasis on this to be skin. I wanted her to look super glowy. See, she's really totally feeling herself here. She absolutely loves the way she looks on camera. I loved it. I had to keep checking on the camera to see what I needed to do just to make sure that everything was looking good. I'm going in with a contour powder. This is from MAC, and I'm using a non-synthetic brush. This is actually kind of like a concealer brush, and I'm using it to contour her nose. If you notice the contour color, it's a medium color, not too light, not too dark, and I'm working it into her brow to create that symmetry. And a few finishing touches, I'm taking the contour powder into her crease just to add a little bit more dimension, cleaning up the concealer under the eyes with a natural brush, so a non-synthetic. She's loving the way it's all looking on camera. I'm adding a little bit of contour powder just to set everything in place and to add that extra dimension under the jaw, into the cheekbones. Just make sure everything is looking nice and flawless. I love the way she's looking. I'm so happy with this look. This is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope I gave you some nice tips and tricks. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Follow me on Instagram at Lina's Makeup and Hair, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.